Greetings, YouTube! Welcome to the Witching Hour. I'm your host, Wolfman Dan. Danny staying here on the Danny Dan blog. Give me 1 second, get some stuff all set up over here on how we want it to look. Oh, that looks great. And we're going to let Pat McCormick rock us on in with some music to give people a chance to get in here. If anybody actually bothers to show up, that is. Greetings, my flock. I know you're here, sweetheart. That's right. We're going to see if we can make it through the night without getting hit by a bad storm like last time. I don't know if anybody caught me on 13 o'clock live Saturday night. It was a total hurricane. Greetings all and welcome to the show. Hey, I think I played the wrong song. I played the Monsters. Maybe I should have been playing something a little more space orientated. Since we're doing that UFO thing tonight, right? Maybe I should have did some UFO kind of music. Wait a minute, I got a UFO song. We'll play one more song and then we'll get started. So be sure to stick around. Oh, and we know. We're sponsored by MexiPads. What? This one suits us, right? Some people get welcome to the show. You're watching The Witching Hour. I'm your host, Wolfman Dan, and somebody's texting me while I'm doing a show. I'm doing a show. You can't text me while I'm doing a show. I can't even see what it says. So if you're texting me while I'm doing a show, that means, yeah, probably should be maybe watching the show. Am I missing something, guys? Am I missing something? Let me know in chat if I'm missing something. If whoever's texting me is actually watching the show? What? Oh, wrong person. Oh, I guess I know who it was texting me now. Alrighty, guys, we got some UFOs from beyond tonight. It's a classic. It's 70s. And it's a UFO documentary. So we're going to watch some UFO stuff, and I hope you enjoy it. So I'll key it up, and without further ado, we will get things started. As I present graphic evidence of them UFOs.
Officially admitted that flying saucers exist. Is there another civilization somewhere? Are we under surveillance by an intelligence that has revealed itself to us?
Hazardous, it's dangerous, its greatest adventure, on which man has ever embarked.
Is life everywhere the same as us?
Greetings, Google Bones.
Just one example of a vast array of possible kinds of biochemistry. The paradigm of science is not equipped to handle this.
Identified flying objects which are
Believing in them is a matter of communicating with them. Very strange and unusual.
Economic reasons, political reasons, military reasons. It's not a scientific issue.
It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle that's worth exploring.
Has been observed by alien civilizations for at least the past 50 years. Throughout our history, each age in our development is characterized by an ignorance about the scope of possibilities not yet understood, that future generations may look back on with a sympathetic smile of condescension.
To us, in the 20th century Earth, this might seem magical, but I tell people to maintain some sense, if they can, please ask them, to maintain some sense of humility. Because if you were to show this video camera, or a hologram, or a laser to someone only 300 Earth years ago, it would appear to be magic. It would be considered supernatural.
Such is the case with UFOs. To us, they represent intangible illusions between fantasy and reality. 400 years ago, the Earth was believed to be the physical center of the universe. Nicholas Copernicus, and later Galileo, challenged that belief, suggesting that the sun was the center. And still 200 years would pass before William Herschel's stellar observations, and later Edwin Hubble's classification of galaxies, relegated our sun to a single, insignificant star among billions. Only then do we begin to imagine our place in an incomprehensibly vast cosmos.
I think there is a certain twilight zone of phenomena that, if confirmed, would really overthrow the entire materialistic
worldview.
Let me just say, as a professor of philosophy who writes professional articles and knows how to do academic research, there is in this field some incredibly good literature, very sophisticated material.
There's just a wealth of information. I would challenge anybody to disprove that. You see, anyone who says there's no evidence to study has not looked.
He looks like BTK. Ah.
The possibility of a purely psychological explanation is ruled out. The discs do not behave in accordance with physical laws, but as though they were weightless, and show signs of intelligent guidance, such as would suggest quasi-human pilots. The officials in possession of authoritative information should not hesitate to enlighten the public as speedily and thoroughly as possible. Dr. Carl Gustav Jung, 1954.
It's just more than, UFO crashes and alien bodies. I mean, there's a whole science here. They're called Dr. Hynek. He said UFOs, whatever they represent the science of the 21st century. Right now, we don't have the technology or the know-how to explain what they are and how they do it.
Crop circle formations continue to appear on several continents.
This is the beginning, a doorway opening to a new science, a new physics, a new energy, a new world. I think very much that's where this is all moving.
Thousands of credible sightings continue to persist.
The subject of UFOs is part of the subject matter of some courses that I teach. Okay. So it's got academic credibility in the community. Yeah. At least as far as I'm concerned, the evidence is really overwhelming that extraterrestrials are here. It's hard, after you see 5 weeks of that material, it's really hard not to have that opinion, I think.
Abduction accounts from around the world, beginning in the 60s with the Hill case, recall exact similarities and also continue to persist.
The problem here is in a way, it's the messenger. Here I am, a historian at Temple University, here, but an artist at the Hopkins. And there's some like Swords who's at Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan University, and various people saying these things that this might be happening is, well, the fact that we are saying it automatically means it can't be happening. Because the message is far too big for the messenger. If this were truly happening, we would not be the messengers. The President of the United States, the Secretary General of the United Nations, they would be the messengers, and that would mean it wouldn't be happening. So no matter how much we say it, and no matter how much FDP say it, that automatically means it can't be happening.
The UFO phenomenon has been a part of our lives for the past 50 years. With it comes the possibility that we may finally discover who we are and what we humans might accomplish in a vast cosmos, endowed with intelligence.
What I always state about this phenomenon is that taken together, the collection of all the photographs, the videotapes, the accounts that I've been mentioning, the ground traces, the physical marks of people's bodies, the descriptions of the events in the craft, et cetera, the sighting, all of that constitutes an extraordinary phenomenon. And I think it is indisputable that an extraordinary phenomenon demands an extraordinary investigation.
To continue to dismiss the UFO phenomenon may very well be ignoring the most profound occurrences of our times. In our struggle to achieve technological dominance of the physical world, we have endangered not only ourselves, but countless other living forms. And in the process, we seem to have lost a profound sense of our place in the cosmos.
The paradigm of science is not equipped to handle this phenomenon. Sociological reasons, threat, denial, psychological reasons, economic reasons, political reasons, military reasons. It's not a scientific issue.
So there's a lot that scientific method, as we know, can do to study this phenomenon. But what it cannot do is try to explain the meaning of it or the purpose of it. This must be left to another type of reflection.
For the last few years, I've been thinking a lot more about what's happening on this planet and seeing that the evolution of human consciousness has reached a crisis point which goes along with the tide time when we have the potential to step out and start exploring the stars. That's the challenge where we're really facing at the moment. We've become masters of the material world, and technology is really, technology is tools, and we've got the most incredible tools now to do almost anything we want in the material world, including stepping off this planet into space. But I think what we've got to become is equal masters of our minds. And that's the next frontier, is inner space. We've got to stop being victims of our fears and all the stuff that's inside us. We've got to actually become masters of ourselves, move beyond this egocentric phase, so that we can then become the true masters of our technology and use that with wisdom for the good of ourselves, the good of the planet, the good of the cosmos.
The stories piqued my curiosity, and I began first collecting news clips from the local papers, which published little short news items on them, occasionally. And then I started looking for pictures, and I clipped a few of them out of newspapers and magazines until I ran into somebody that had an actual print. And I went to a lot of trouble negotiating with him to get a copy of that. But once I had one original print, it was easy enough to trade that to the next man and in return for his. And then I had 2 to trade, and then 4 to trade, and the collection grew rapidly when I had something somebody else wanted. And I just kept trading the same pictures over and over to others who had different pictures, and eventually everything that was out there came my direction, and I put it in the file. So at the present time, I think there's over 4,000 pictures in the files, and they're all different pictures, but it's purged, pretty well purged. I don't have any in there that I know are fakes or have strong reason to believe are fakes.
Colonel Stevens began his career in the Air Force as a young fighter pilot during World War II in the Pacific. An expert in the field of aircraft technology, after the war he was stationed with the Foreign Technology Division of the Air Technical Intelligence Center at Wright Field. During his 24-year career, Colonel Stevens played a role in the negotiations which led to the Japanese surrender, and served as a consultant to the Bolivian Air Force in its structural formation. Retired from service in 1963, Wendell Stevens has since earned an international reputation as one of the world's foremost UFO investigators, having published well over 20 books on the subject. His interest in the phenomenon was established in 1947 when he was transferred to Alaska and placed in charge of B-29 crews flying missions over the Arctic.
When I got to Alaska, I found that my additional duty, I was assigned there as an assistant base operations officer, completely out of my specialty. My specialty was technical engineering. As an assistant base operations officer, and my additional duty was supervising a team of civilian technicians from Wright Field, where I had just come out of, that were installing special equipment aboard the B-29s that were flying their target profiles are over all the B-29 crews had their targets in Russia, and they carried them home with them. They had them with them all the time so they could get on an airplane in 5 minutes and have the targets with them. They were required to fly a profile mission on their targets over the Arctic and Arctic airspace and their Arctic conditions at least once, and every crew was rotated through Alaska to do this. My team was installing special equipment to look for anomalous aerial phenomena, is what the Russians were calling it. We were calling them flying saucers. We were looking for surges in the electrical system. We installed surge detectors in every system on a B-29. There's 5 or 6 different electrical systems. We installed magnetic detectors in the lines. We installed cameras in positions that didn't have, all the gun positions on the B-29 already had 60-millimeter cameras in them. But we installed other cameras that looked forward and looked aft. We had handheld cameras. We had even 35-millimeter movie cameras and a big 70-millimeter movie camera that could be used. And they also had a Fairchild 8x10 camera that was a big thing like this. It took a picture on an 8-inch by 10-inch negative. So all of that stuff was carried aboard the airplane, and after the operation people briefed the crews, then after the weather people briefed the crews, then the Coastal Geodetic Survey people briefed the crews, then I had to brief the crews on the equipment that my team had put aboard and how to use it and what it was for. And if they got anything when they came back, they were debriefed in the same order. And if they had experienced anything, they'd be turned over to me last, and they'd tell me what they experienced one by one. And while they were doing that, my crews would be downloading the cartridges, cassettes, and film cans, and all those things we had. And if they had had an experience of any kind that was unique and important, the data would all be boxed in a metal box looked like a little foot locker, about that long and about that wide and about that high. And that was padlocked on a lieutenant's wrist and flown out to Washington every night on a courier. And he had to go to a certain office and had a key to take it off to unlock him and turn him loose. And they kept the box and sent it back on the next courier flight. We had several of those, and this was how the data was transmitted to Washington. And we never had no way to read it. We couldn't develop that. We weren't allowed to develop the film, to read the tapes, to look at the movie camera film, nothing.
But you would hear the stories.
Well, we'd hear the stories that resulted from the action that was on the film, but we never got to see any of it. So there were some real interesting stories about seeing objects sitting on the water, submerge and disappear as the B-29 came along. Other times they'd take off and fly away. Once was seen to come to the surface and emerge and fly away. They saw them take off from the ice surface of the ice pack up there, the snowfield. And these are big objects, 100 feet in diameter, that have no ground support equipment. You know, to get a B-29 airborne in the Arctic in the wintertime, it takes a field of equipment around the B-29 as big as the B-29. Well, here were bigger craft sitting on the snow up there with no ground support equipment that take off and fly away at high speed. And that puzzled our senior leaders a good deal, because they wanted to believe that it was a Russian innovation that had come out of the war, that they didn't want to accept the idea that it might be extraterrestrial. In fact, I was almost alone in that idea. Most of the time, I tell my boss that I thought they were extraterrestrial beings, and he'd laugh. He'd say, they can't come here from there and go back. Why would they come? Because cosmic distances are too vast, you know. It's going to take you 50 years to get someplace and 50 years to get home. Who's going? Among the first photographs taken on the old tin-type cameras was one at Drobak, Norway, showing a photographer with the big bellows over his head and a big camera on a tripod was taking a scene of the harbor. After late afternoon scene of the harbor, early evening, and he saw an object moving from right to left across the field of view, snapped a picture of it, and got perhaps the first photograph of a UFO at close range in Earth's atmosphere in the sky here. And that picture was taken on the 27th of July of 1907 at Drobak, Norway. The next picture of importance, and probably the second or third picture of UFOs taken, was photographed by Mr. Alfredo Fendricas, a weekly news magazine reporter for the paper in Fatima in Portugal. And you know, the apparitions began in August, 13th of August, 13th of September, and the 13th of October. In the first apparition, the children saw the sun swooping overhead, and an apparition appeared, and to 3 shepherd children, they reported that to their priest. The priest went with them the next time. The apparition happened, only the 4 people saw it. They got the word that it was going to happen a third time on the 13th of October. Now, all this was predicted in advance. And by the time of the third anticipated apparition on the 13th of October, there were 12,000 people gathered in the fields there. And when the object appeared, it was brilliant, came through saw a spot, it emerged through the underside of the clouds. It was rotating on a vertical axis, began to swoop over the heads of the crowd like this, making low passes back and forth over the crowd. Alfredo Fendricas got 2 pictures with his camera of the object in the sky. We have one of them here. It shows up as a brilliant ball of light below the clouds It's a tintype, so it's not the sharpest picture of all. Then the next pictures of consequence were the pictures taken during the Japanese invasion of China and their Manchurian operation. They used aircraft, and objects appeared over the flight line of the Japanese bombers preparing for missions. They appeared following the bomber formations in flight. They appeared in the sky above formations. They even passed through formations, much like the Foo Fighters of modern war history, except they were something else then. And it was during that time, during the Manchurian occupation, that a Chinese or a Japanese general in the occupation forces was walking down the street in Tianjin, China, and his attention was drawn to an object in the sky because a street photographer, one of those with the old bellows camera, had set up, and people started pointing and shouting and pointing to the object in the sky. Rickshaws stopped, crowds stopped, people pointed. The tintype cameraman aimed his camera and took one picture of the object coming down the street. The Japanese general went over and bought it and took it back to Japan, and that's the photograph made in 1942 at Tianjin, China, in the middle of full day, daylight. The next one of any serious importance was one that was made over Los Angeles on the 24th, the night of the 24th to 25th of February, 1942. And this was after our war with Japan had started, and we had our cities in blackout at the time. Los Angeles was blacked out every night. San Francisco, San Diego, the whole west coast of the United States. And early in the morning, like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, disc-shaped objects appeared over the city. And the anti-aircraft batteries turned on the searchlights. The objects passed back and forth through the searchlights, some dozen objects in the sky. They started, anti-aircraft batteries started firing on them, and they fired 1,260 rounds, 1,430 rounds, anti-aircraft rounds of ammunition did hit a thing. I killed a few people. The falling metal from the anti-aircraft shells killed people, dogs, set houses afire, did a lot of damage, but didn't bring down any alien craft. The next one of serious importance, again, was before, well, it was after Kenneth Arnold described flying saucers here. That was in 1949. But the next photo event of interest happened on the 17th of March of 1950 at Farmington, New Mexico. When on that day, Mr. Walter Rogel, managing editor of the Farmington Times, published news on the front page of his paper, "Huge saucer armada jolts Farmington." Now what happened on that day, the town's population of about 5,000 people then, looked up and saw spaceships, circular, metallic disc-shaped craft with domes on the top, passing over their city. They were changing position within the formation like a flock of bees or birds. They did not maintain a regular established formation. It was just a large gaggle of objects that flew over. Hundreds of them flew over for almost 2 hours, and the same thing happened the following day. One picture escaped collection by the military people that went there and canvassed the houses. They took all the pictures, took cameras, but somebody had left town after taking the photographs and took one to Durango, Colorado, where he turned it into the Durango paper, and Durango published this one photograph. Shows about 7 or 8 of the objects in the sky, 5 of them in a loose formation at lower level, and 4 or 5 at higher levels beyond it. A bird watcher walking in the woods on the 23rd of April 1950 was crashing through the underbrush, and he emerged into a clear area not far from Red Bud, Illinois, facing the southwest. He came into a clearing from the south side, and as he stepped into the open area, he saw a large object hovering just over the scrub bushes there. Now, this was about 30 or 40 feet in diameter, and it was less than 100 feet high. It was below the tops of the trees. And as he stepped into the clearing there, it started to move. Slowly at first, and then faster and faster. He had time to open his reflex camera where you look in the top, and they're hard to sight in because the scene moves the opposite direction once you move the camera. And he got it open and got one picture, and by the time he could roll the film and get set up again, it had moved so far away he was afraid he wouldn't get it. He snapped the picture. He got a little dark spot in the sky, but it was not very definitive. It was just a dark smudge leaving. The first picture was a good, sharp, clear picture. And he turned it over to the local newspaper, and it was published on the paper. And a few days later, he was contacted by a newsboy who was throwing papers that time of day down the road in a rural area. And the newsboy said that he saw the object coming from the direction of the woods, heading down the highway at about 5 times the speed of an airplane. And he looked up at it and saw it, and down the road a little ways, he came on a man and his wife working on the roof repairing it, and he said, "Did you see the thing that just went over?" And they said yes, they had watched it also. So there were other observers that corroborated Dean Morgan's story, and they came out in news reports the following day. So that was an interesting sighting because it represented a type seen rather close up and photographed within 100, 150 feet, 200 feet of the camera. The next one that got any real attention occurred on the 11th of May in 1952 at McMinnville, Oregon, at about 7:30 in the early evening of 11 May 1952. Farmer Paul Trent was in the kitchen of his home when he heard his wife, who called to him from the backyard to come out and see the strange object that was approaching. And he immediately ran for his folding camera and dashed outside to meet her. There against the low overcast sky, he saw a circular dome disc with a tower on top of the dome, a raised cupola. It was moving fairly slow. He had plenty of time to frame it. He snapped the first picture, and then he had to move to his right to snap the second picture. There was no flame or efflux of any kind visible, no sound. It was completely silent. His wife didn't hear any sounds either. The pictures he took on the 11th of May, and he didn't report them until the 12th of June, when he had his pictures developed and back, and he showed them to a friend, Frank Wortman, who suggested they take him to the newspaper, and they took him to the Richmond, California Independent, where they looked at them, tested them, and published them for the first time. So now it's 2 months after the pictures were taken before the information got out. But they have become a classic in the lore of UFOlogy, I guess if you want to call it now. And they've been verified by a number of researchers.
They're from the future!
My hypothesis is that these people who are driving these UFOs, or at least the people who designed them, have a technology that's more advanced than ours. I mean, I think that's obvious that they're more advanced than our technology. Their technology is so advanced that they have figured out a way to artificially warp space-time the way a black hole does, only without all the gravitational effects that rip things apart into their constituent atoms. So that they can actually manipulate, they have some sort of a generator in here, so that they can actually produce this field around their craft like a little bubble, a little private universe that they carry around with them. So that they can actually step out of normal space-time into their own private universe and then step back into it at other coordinates. So if that's possible, then they can not only come from all these distant places, but they can also come from parallel universes that coexist with ours and we're not able to see because they're on a different vibrational level or whatever. They can even come, probably, from our own past or our own future. Because as the quantum physicists are telling us now, the past, present, and future are not separate. Our idea of the stream of time is only an artifact of our consciousness. It is our consciousness that's traveling. It isn't that things are happening, cause and effect, in a linear fashion. it is our consciousness that's doing that. So the past and future actually exist simultaneously with us, and if you're able to warp space-time, you can travel to and from them. Time is not linear. In fact, it doesn't exist. It's just a concept that we use to describe aspects of space-time, and it's an artifact of our consciousness. So this warping of space-time, I think, can explain a great many things about the UFOs.
Some remarkable UFO photographs from the early 1950s were taken by George Adamski through his 6-inch telescope near Mount Palomar, California. In many respects, Mr. Adamski can be considered a pioneer in this field, also claiming to have been in contact with the occupants of the craft.
I consider myself extremely fortunate because really, from a very young age, I had the opportunity to be in an environment where this type of information, this field of UFOs, was really in an amazing time. I mean, the news was covering it as much as they possibly could. Scientists were exploring. We were coming in the space program. So space was on everyone's mind. And during those 63 to 65, which we were involved with Mr. Adamski personally during those times, I really had an opportunity to see some of these crafts exceedingly close. And these are impressions that never leave my thinking because they were so deeply rooted. And to go to these lectures in which you had literally lines of scientists and military officials sitting there and people listening intently on the information that was exchanged and given, it was a very dynamic time in this field, which certainly has changed in the last 20 years. My father had numerous sightings, and due to these sightings, he got in contact with many different agencies of the government and investigated heavily into others who had reports of UFO encounters and taken pictures of these type of craft. And because of this investigation, he got in contact with Mr. George Adamski, who was in many respects a pioneer in this field already back into the late 40s and early 50s. I've been taking a large number of telescopic pictures and had motion picture footage of these crafts, and even had many controversial contacts during these times. And this is really the basis of how I became involved through my lifetime, through my father, and through Mr. George Adamski. George Adamski was originally a student and involved with philosophical teaching. And it was due to his study of philosophy that led him to the conclusions that life and the principles of nature and life around us were not by any means a manifestation of only the environment around us. Basically that creation and life was universal. And it was this recognition that led him to investigate through telescopic means, looking out into space and at the moon to see if he could find evidence of this expression of life. And he was able to, through lunar photography, take some of the very first pictures of spacecraft orbiting the moon and traveling in the Earth's atmosphere already in the late 1940s. Historically, this analysis, I would say, began with Leonard Cramp, who did orthographic projections on the Adamski pictures. He did comparison analysis on the Adamski scout craft with the Coniston pictures taken by two young teenagers in England several years after he took his photographs, and then also with a Brazilian shot that was taken in late 1954. And photographic analysis, Dr. Cramp came up with the dimensions and the exact sign and signature of these type of craft, finding them by that technology in the 50s to be authentic. Since that time, Adamski's pictures have gone through biometric radiation tests. MGM Studios did an analysis on the film. They've gone through each decade of technology's analysis, and they have been always found to be authentic and to be some of the best pictures ever taken. And I think one of their strong points was that they are taken 40 years ago, long before the computer technology that we have today, which certainly can composite any type of picture that we wish to. In this particular shot, we have a picture of a cigar-shaped craft with its propulsion system fully operational, so it looks like it's enveloped in a luminescent shield of fluctuating light, and it's located between the Earth and the Moon. It was taken by a 6-inch telescope Mr. Adamski took in the late 1940s, and this craft can be in dimension anywhere from 1,000 feet to several miles in length. And this craft here is the same type of craft as you see in the picture above, but you can see the outline of the hull itself. And this is in orbit in the Earth's atmosphere. And here is another craft around the Moon, and you can see it's trailing behind it the several other craft in sequence as it's around lunar orbit.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
And here we have another shot around the Moon, and you have here half a dozen craft in formation flying along the surface of the Moon.
In early March of 1951, through his 6-inch telescope, George Adamski was able to photograph a remarkable series of 4 photos as the large carrier-type craft was releasing 6 scout craft.
And basically this craft is what we would call a miniature city. It is in an environment that is enclosed to itself, and these bell-shaped craft, like our aircraft on an aircraft carrier, are housed in this cigar-shaped craft, and so this is used for distance travel through long distances of space.
The bright glowing effect of the craft is a result of natural particles in space coming into contact with the resonant field generated by the craft. This effect can also bend the light waves entirely around the craft, causing it to disappear from view.
That was a good hit. Wah! Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm glad there wasn't nobody talking.
What we have here is a picture of the bell-shaped, the scout-shaped craft with the 3-ball condensers underneath it. The condensers are a means in which the polarity, the electromagnetic polarity, can be shifted direction, and it's set up triangularly, so by shifting the polarity from this angle to this angle, the craft maneuvers in a 3-dimensional field. And around the outside of the cabin area, there are 3 sets of 4 portholes, or 12, and that is common to all the scout crafts that have been photographed anywhere in the world, whether they're Adamski photographs or not. The scout craft never touches the surface of the planet. In other words, when it comes down to land, even when the propulsion system is shut, what you and I would consider off, There's always a trickle charge going through, so it maintains several inches off the surface of the ground. So the three balls that you see underneath the saucer portion of it have nothing to do with landing pod, because the craft never rests on the ground. These are part of the propulsion system that help to direct the magnetic field and the magnetic flux underneath the craft. These craft operate on what we would call a pro-gravity field. They do not believe in fighting the principles and the forces of nature, because they are far too strong. What they do is they believe in blending harmoniously with those forces. And it's very much like you can jump against a ocean current and swim and expand a lot of energy, or you can turn around and let it carry you where it's going. And they follow the currents of electromagnetic energy through space from planet to planet. And this is how they operate. Although George Adamski may be better known for his pictures of extraterrestrial spacecraft, he was far more concerned with letting people know that it wasn't just the existence of these craft that was important, but actually who was behind it and the reasons why these people come to visit us. And I think that is to a great extent lacking today. We hear so many stories of all types of interaction and contacts that are of a fearful or harmful or aggressive nature. And this is exactly contrary to what George Adamski spoke about and what his life work was really concerned with doing. And that was to educate people into the purpose behind these contacts and the reasons that they came to talk to us and the benefits that we as a civilization can derive from interactions with these extraterrestrials.
Well, I think I've always been interested in the possibility of extraterrestrials, and I think through my own work with meditation, spiritual investigations, I've come to the conclusion that one thing that all creatures in the universe share is consciousness. All beings, all living beings. We may be different, totally different biologically, but ants, amoebas, whatever, one thing we all share is that we are conscious creatures. The nature of our consciousness, what happens in our consciousness may vary enormously, but that seems the common ground, the common bond between us and any other species there may be elsewhere in the universe. And for the last few years, I've been thinking a lot more about what's happening on this planet and seeing that the evolution of human consciousness has reached a crisis point, which goes along with the time when we have the potential to step out and start exploring the stars. And it seems to me that any species that gets this far has to take some sort of cosmic intelligence test, which says, are you really intelligent? Are you really wise enough to be able to use your technology for the good of the cosmos rather than just for your own ego needs? And that's the test we're facing now. And if we fail that test, then I think we will wipe ourselves out or put ourselves back to the Stone Age or something like that. Conversely, if we get through this time and develop the capacity to begin to travel, whether materially or psychically, across space, we will have proven that we can move beyond this egocentric phase of consciousness. We will be, to all intents and purposes, saints, wise beings, whatever you want to call it. So conversely, I feel any species that has developed the ability to be in contact with us here, again, either physically, psychically, whatever, must have gone through that itself. It must have passed its own cosmic intelligence test, which means as far as we are concerned, it must be the level of consciousness of angels or whatever. I think all the stuff about extraterrestrials being malevolent beings, they're coming here to zap us with ray guns. All that stuff is just a projection of our own fears, of our own ego, of our own warlike nature, which we've got to transcend. Any extraterrestrials must have transcended that, or they'd have wiped themselves out. So it seems to me that if we're going to consciously approach them, we need to do so on a level of consciousness, like we would approach some guru or angel or very wise spiritual beings. That's what I think they are, is wise spiritual beings relative to us.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that main event here on the Daddy Dan blog. Hey, let me tell you guys real quick. When I planned out this show on UFOs the other day, I didn't know there was going to be a 6-hour UFO disclosure from Mexico on. And I started watching it. And we finally got translations. And for 5 hours, I sat there reading the UFO chat, reading the translations from the conference. It gave me a migraine. And I understand why very few people are showing up for my little UFO show tonight. Hey, I done did a show on the Loch Ness Monster if I'd known everybody else was doing UFO stuff today. But later on we'll talk about that, and it is also, hold on for 1 minute, I'm going to get this set up. From 1967. Check this UFO thing out.
Good evening. A flying saucer landing on the steps of Sydney Town Hall. Fact or fiction? Well, that scene was fiction from the ABC children's serial The Strangers, but there are some people who claim it's a fact that flying saucers have landed here. They point to things like the American Saturn V rocket, which if it's launched successfully at 9 o'clock tonight, will open the way to a manned landing on the moon. And they say, why shouldn't the same thing happen in reverse from other planets? Well, so far it doesn't look as if there's life on other planets in our solar system. And a spacecraft from the nearest galaxy to ours, travelling at the speed of light, would take 2 million years to reach us. So the intergalactic theory seems unlikely. Nevertheless, reports of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, continue, and they're not completely ignored by officials. The British House of Commons has just been assured that lights seen over southern England were the planet Venus, and not men from Mars. Australia too has societies which report these phenomena, and they claim to have sighted 120 UFOs this year. Here's Frank Bennett. Just a moment. I'm sorry. Yes. Well, Frank Bennett's delayed in the outer limits, but he's going to be with us in just a minute.
Flying saucers, where do they come from? This is the title of a recent book on the subject of UFOs, or unidentified flying objects. And the author is Sydney businessman Mr. Richard Tambling, who claims to have had several sightings of UFOs. Mr. Tambling was an RAF photographer and an expert in aircraft recognition. Now, in the preface of this book, Mr. Tambling, you say that now that the existence of UFOs is gaining widespread acceptance, the question is, where do they come from? But my question to you is, are you sure that the existence of these things is gaining widespread recognition?
They've been around for 20 years now in this present phase. I think that if we haven't learnt of their presence by now, in 20 years, that we're the one that needs questioning.
What about part two of this? Where do they come from? What are the latest theories?
I've researched quite deeply into this, and my solution is that they come from everywhere in space. This galaxy, other galaxies, everywhere except Earth.
You mentioned other galaxies. One American physics professor has said that if they do come from other galaxies, they would have taken 2 million years to get here. What about that?
Well, this professor hasn't heard of teleportation yet. You know, teleportation was a wild idea, but it is already a line of scientific research in America.
What does it mean?
It's the transmission of matter from one point to another without any physical medium.
So there's no travelling at the speed of light or any other speed?
No, it's like our image on TV tonight. We're here, our image is transported somewhere else. In fact, with teleportation, we would be transported elsewhere.
Sounds an interesting theory anyway. If that's so, that certainly makes us Earth people rather backward, doesn't it?
Yes, I think it does. I think we have a long way to go before we ever can dream of these standards.
Mr. Tamling, let's look at some of the examples of UFO shapes that have come into you.
There are many shapes. I've numbered 171. I think 136 appear in the book. Some are weird and wonderful, some are interesting. Some are laid out as a block there, like a child's block. Weird shapes.
Surely some of them must be wildly wrong. There's such a variety of them.
Well, very few people get a chance to photograph a UFO or a flying saucer, and a sketch is the only way of representing it.
Well, you talk about photographs. You do have some from your book here. What's this one?
This is taken by Paul Villa at Albuquerque, New Mexico. The saucer was quite low. He was prepared beforehand by a warning, and he was there with a camera on hand to take this. This might sound weird, but he has done this on 2 occasions. A close-up of the same saucer in a slightly different position. The windows that would appear to be around the rim are not windows at all. There's no windows visible in this photograph. This is something that only shows in our atmosphere, apparently, according to Paul Villa. This is Paris. UFOs over Paris. The Eiffel Tower on the right-hand side there. I don't know much about the photograph, except it's claimed to be genuine. Paul Villa again. Bernalillo, New Mexico. This saucer was claimed to come from Coma Berenices, 400 light years away. This is the Trinidad saucer, or object. This photograph has been under scrutiny by American scientists for a long time, and has been proved genuine. This is a photograph from a 8mm colour movie film. It's pretty hard to fake on 8mm colour movie.
You're not suggesting that some of those might be fakes?
I think this is always a question. We people here aren't always honest, and I think there's always the opportunist.
Mr. Tamling, you say here in your book that it's only a matter of time before the strangers from the skies come to know us better. Now, are you suggesting some kind of invasion from outer space?
This is quite possible. I don't think in the sense that we would think of it, but people coming, yes. In 20 years, their saucer sightings have been at military bases, any place that would be a key situation or key position in wartime.
Now, why would they want to come to the Earth, the planet Earth? Because we're, as I said earlier, apparently a rather technologically backward nation, or Earth, or planet compared with where they've come from.
Yes, I haven't a direct answer to this. I pose this as a question to the reader of the book. As a matter of fact, my book was written in that spirit. I am telling them so many things that I believe are honest and true. I'm leading them to think for themselves. I don't want them to believe in flying saucers or disbelieve in flying saucers. I want them to get out and look and see them.
All right, well, we'll go out and look and see and think, and thank you very much, Mr. Tamling.
So what'd you think about that? I love all them old pictures of UFOs, man. Let me tell you, that's what I had planned for tonight, a little special on UFOs. You know what? I am so sick of UFOs. It's been a UFO kind of day. It really has. It's been UFOs all the way around, up and down, all day long. Hey, give me a minute. I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is from his fourth show today, and let me tell you, it was the best show on. This is some of the UFO hearing I was talking about. This is the one where I had to sit and read all the disclosure. I'm going to drop that link here in a second in the chat. Everybody be sure to check it out. And if you want to go watch 4 hours plus of UFO disclosure from Mexico and read every word, you can do it. And I recommend you do if you're really into UFOs. If you're really, really into UFOs, this is something you'll find fascinating. I read every fucking word. So help me God. For hours, I read every word. And it was still one of the most interesting things that I've seen lately. Yeah, it was hard.
Somos en proporción como el planeta que habitamos.
So that links in the chat for Unidentified S4, which had that incredible
Nosotros,
UFO
las plantas, los árboles,
disclosure conference from Mexico today.
la tonalidad.
And I sat through the whole thing, I swear to God. I took the phone to the bathroom with me so I wouldn't miss nothing. Because I'm all into UFOs and the paranormal. And I couldn't miss it. So there, Anthony, I did give you a shout out. Oh, by the way, Anthony, congratulations. In the most people you ever had in your chat. Over 1,000 people at one time joined Anthony today on S4 for that incredible show. And I recommend, after this shit's over, oh, wait a minute. After my incredibly good show's over, I recommend all y'all check it out. And now I'm to the point, I don't have no clue what I'm going to play next. I really don't. I hadn't planned on it. Hadn't planned on getting this far. I should have, but I didn't. So let me think. Any suggestions in the chat what we should do now? Would you like to hear music? You know, I'm really good at playing music like a damn professional DJ. Or more, but since it's a UFO show, I think the best thing I can do is play some more UFO stuff, right? And I have this really cool favorite show. And my favorite show on YouTube, and I'm not ashamed to say it, is a show called The Paranormal Highway. You know, you'll see me on there quite often, actually. When I do Bigfoot stuff, I usually show up and have a few words to say. A lot of times he does UFO stuff on Paranormal Highway. So I'm going to play a little bit of some Paranormal Highway show talking about the Berkshire UFO. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.
Welcome to another Paranormal Highway. Now, before we get started, today is 9/11, so make sure you give thanks to the people who, you know, lost their lives during 9/11. So just want to put my heart out there for that. Today we got a good show. We got the famous Berkshire UFO story. Hold on one second. I hear a little echo. Let me fix that. Give me a second.
Look, Eric is just as professional as I am.
Hold on one second. All right, got that fixed. The Berkshire incident versus the Val Johnson incident. Now, if you don't know these two stories, fantastic. You're coming to the right show. This is the perfect show for you. If you do know them, that's even better. Now, I'm still stuck in the middle on what I feel is the bigger story. So maybe after I look at a few videos on both sides and listen to you fine people in the chat, maybe that will sway me to one side or another. As of right now, I don't even know which one I'm going to pick. So kick back, relax, get some popcorn, get the car keys, get ready, get on the Paranormal Highway because we're taking a ride, baby. We are taking this ride all the way to what's ever out there. Unless they don't want me. So get ready.
I love that fucking intro. That intro is the shit. No kidding. That is one of the best intros on YouTube. I don't care what nobody says.
sometimes these stories, we know people in the community that are close to sometimes a story. You know, sometimes they know somebody who's involved with the Val Johnson incident or the Berkshire UFO story. There's people who are involved in those groups. That is no reason to vote for something just because you know somebody who's involved in certain groups. When you put in your vote, it needs to come from here. It needs to come from you. Do not vote for something just because you know somebody, they're close to it. Because otherwise, you're no different than watching a CNN News or a Fox News, you know, where they're telling a story, but then they put in their party beliefs, trying to narrate the story to make it work for them. So, now, if the story is great for you, even though it's involved with somebody you know, that's fine. There's no issues. But I'm just saying, don't ever vote for something just because you know somebody who might be involved, even though you think the other story is more credible to you. You gotta be truthful with yourself. All right, you have to be. I just want to make that clear. I'm not trying to. I don't want people to pick a side just for that reason. You know, like I said, there's no reason why there's a bigger story, but at least make it a certain reason. You know, it's one of the stories that made you a believer first, or whatever it is. Just don't pick somebody just because somebody else does. Hey, that's my favorite band. Oh, that's my favorite band too. Come on, give me a break. So you gotta be real with yourself. All right, the Berkshire versus the Val Johnson. Now, I'm gonna play some videos on both sides. You know, we'll start with the Berkshire UFO story. So if you don't know these stories yet, don't put in your vote. Wait to put in your vote in the poll after you hear these stories, because I know not everybody knows these stories. Some people do, some people don't. Or some people might know more about one story versus another. That's another reason you might want to wait, just to hear the other side. So let's start with the Berkshire. Let me pull up the video. This one is called the 1969 the Berkshire event. So this story happened in 1969. So let's check it out.
The 1969 Berkshire UFO incident on September 1st, 1969. The Reed family claimed they were abducted by a UFO in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. Today, Berkshire County, Massachusetts is famous for its wide-open countryside that makes it a popular vacation destination. But the rural territory was once heralded as a hotbed of UFO activity following the alleged sighting that took place on the evening of September 1st, 1969. More than 50 years later, the true scary story of the Berkshire UFO incident remains perhaps the most chilling tale of an alien abduction on record. According to witnesses' creepy stories, a disc-shaped craft was seen performing acrobatic maneuvers in the sky above the Berkshires that night. Others say they didn't just see the craft, but were taken aboard it. It's unclear exactly how long the phenomenon lasted, but many who claim to have witnessed the Berkshire UFO described losing time, unable to account for an hour or so during the incident. Everything got really calm, said Thomas Reed, one of the most well-known witnesses of the 1969 Berkshire UFO phenomenon. It was like being in the middle of a hurricane. There was like a barometric change in pressure. It was just like a dead silence. Then there was an eruption of crickets and frogs, and it got really loud, and that was it. It was estimated that at least 40 residents, including children who are now adults still living in the Berkshire area, saw the alleged alien aircraft. Some of them reportedly called into the local radio station to share the bizarre phenomenon that they had just seen. About 40 people in the Berkshires shared their creepy story of witnessing a UFO in 1969. Today, a monument to the incident stands near the Sheffield Bridge, pictured. We had listeners call the radio station that evening, said David ISY, general manager of local radio station WSBS. At the time, they didn't know it was a UFO. They just, called the station to say something bizarre has happened. The large number of simultaneous witness accounts during the UFO Burskire incident has made it a distinct case among alleged sightings in recent decades. The witness accounts were so plentiful and compelling that the Great Barrington Historical Society decided to officially recognize the incident as the first off-world/UFO case in U.S. history some 45 years after it happened. Following the stunning recognition, witnesses...
Just so you know, a lot of states are doing that now. A lot of states are taking folklore stories. I'm not saying they're real or fake, and making them into a day. Vashon Island, where I live, did that with Mary Island. It is now voted into their bylaws or something in there. So a lot of states are doing this. I know Mothman has a thing with their city and all that. So that is actually nothing new. Some people say it's another gimmick for to make money, which, listen, it's fine. I don't care to make money. And, whatever. I don't like the word gimmick because, there's a lot of truthful to it. But, cities doing that, it's to make money, do parades. I'm all for that. That is awesome. But it's nothing new. It doesn't guarantee that the story is 100% real. I know some people say, well, Eric, it's in their bylaws now, so there must be some truth to it. No. You got a lot of city council people just sitting in a circle like, this might be good for the town. Okay, like I live in Des Moines, right? The home of I live in Des Moines, the home of the Men in Black, right? Here, let me show you this. Birthday bash. Every year they do a birthday bash in the town. All because they do this, all because it's in their bylaws, it doesn't mean that there's truth. I think there's some truth to it, but in Des Moines, but it doesn't mean, like Ron says, it's just a piece of paper. So I'm not saying the story's not real because of that. I'm just saying that don't get caught up because a city or a state, because most of these people on these councils don't know shit and they don't care. They're just looking at ways to help increase tourism in their town, which is fine. Listen, in the state of Washington, there's a town way above the Olympic Mountains called Forks, Washington. Forks is it's a little, nothing town, but because of Twilight, that town has tourists going in there, and most of the movies was not even shot in that town. But the town embraces it. It's a great way to get people to come in and make money. So and all that. So just want to get that out there.
Formed the nonprofit UFO Monument Park Incorporated to build a monument in the area.
That's cool.
The monument.
That's cool. If there's a way to get a park, like funds for it, for a park for people to go and sit and all that, that is awesome. That is awesome.
Meant as a landmark to honor the alleged UFO encounter that residents saw in 1969, was erected by the group and signed by Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker. Thomas Reed left, who saw the Berkshire UFO when he was 9 years old, and his brother. Despite the significant eyewitness accounts of the event, some residents of the town have fought to keep scary stories of the alleged UFO incident under wraps. The monument was removed following contentious arguments between the group of witnesses that built the structure and local officials in 2019. Still, the eerie aftermath of the unexplained encounter stays with residents who bore witness that fateful night and who continue to share the creepy story to this day.
All right, a couple things. What is interesting is the amount of people that have seen it. They said, what was it? They said over 40 people. Now, the kid was 9 years old. I think 9 years old could be an age that listen, 84. I was 11 years old when we had our Bigfoot encounter, and I can remember that day. So I was 11. I think 9 years old could be the age, that would have a good memory of it. It's hard to say, right? Because different ages of kids, memories are different than everybody else. Because I know some people say, well, he's 9 years old. What did he really see? Did he really see something? Well, 9 is a pretty good age. I mean, I was 11. 2 years does make a huge difference when you're kids. It truly does. But, hold on a second. Danny wrote, Ron, hey, Anthony and Eric have my phone number. Get it from one of them, brother. Oh, okay. Yeah, contact neighbor, Ron, I'll email it to you. And then, so...
Hey, that was me!
People, it is more interesting to hear a lot more people. Now, there was a story, I can't remember the name. There was a girl who was in a car with her sister and parents. Apparently, she says she was, she got abducted by the ship. She went up to the ship, and to this day, she talks about her sister, but the only weird thing about that story is she never mentions her parents at all. I'm like, such a major dramatic, your parents was with you. How come you only mention your sister, not your parents? Nothing huge, nothing weird. Now, I got another video of actually Thomas Reed talking to Fox News about the incident. Now, this one is about 6 minutes, but the actual person who makes the claims of being abducted, and like I said, that's up to you if you want to believe it or not. This is all because somebody speaks to the news, speaks to somebody, writes a book, doesn't mean it's real, it's true. They can, somebody can be truly abducted, but it might not have been a spaceship. So listen to the story with a grain of salt. And I would say when you listen to somebody tell a story, just try to look at the body language, look at how they're saying it. You know what I mean? Because, my Bigfoot story, at the end of the day, is just a story to most people. So it's hard to make claims when somebody tells a story that it's real or not. So that's why, watch how they tell the story, see how they say it. It's more about getting that feeling if you truly believe that person. So let me pull up this interview. Bookshire UFO sighting interview.
We all have questions. We all have questions about aliens. Are they real? What do they look like? Where do they come from? Are they friends or enemies? And more importantly, what do they know about us? We want to make a good impression on the aliens, so NASA is projecting a series of messages into space, to let the aliens know that we come in peace. What's in the messages? Well, a lot of boring science stuff that goes over my head, like our DNA structure and some math equations, which they believe will give some aliens basic info about our society. But just in case the aliens don't like math or science, NASA is sending something a little more provocative into the galaxy. Nudes. That's right. NASA sent up a diagram of our heavenly bodies. I'll be honest, it's a bold move. And I wonder if the aliens maybe we're coming on a little too strong. My only question is, if they like what they see, what will the aliens send back? If you've read my book, How I Saved the World, it was #1 on the Times list. When I was younger, I talk about a UFO sighting. And I don't want to give away too much of the detail because I want you guys to still buy the book. But it did fly away from me, and maybe that was a good thing, because the Pentagon just released over 1,000...
Okay, hold on.
Although it would be hard for me to tell. Damaged nerves and all kinds. One of the most famous extraterrestrial events in American history was the 1969...
I'm sorry about that first part. I should have deleted that part out. So now we're getting to the part where they're actually interviewing Thomas Reed on his encounter. So you get to actually hear in this video from the actual person who's making that claim.
Berkshire UFO sightings. Several groups of people in different locations reported making contact on the same exact night. And they all had slightly different experiences. And if you ask, many of them still struggle to describe what happened that night. But something happened. In fact, there were so many eyewitnesses, the state of Massachusetts couldn't dismiss this as some deranged thing. They actually recorded it in the state's archives as historically true. Tom Reed was one of those eyewitnesses in the Berkshires. He was only 6 at that time in 1969, but his life hasn't been the same since. All right, Tom, what happened during your encounter?
Hey, thanks for having me on, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was Labor Day, it was a holiday, and we were driving through the Sheffield covered bridge. It was like a shortcut home. And as we came out the other side, our entire family saw what looked like a sphere. It was a round, it looked like a large cue ball, but it was bigger than our station wagon, and it kind of rose from the banks of the Housatonic River off to the left side of the bridge. And as we continued going forward, there was another orange one to our right, which would be like at 5 o'clock if you were a clock. And that one stayed lower to the water. And my mother kept going, maybe 20 or 30 yards down the road until she saw a clearing. And when we stopped, we all looked over this clearing, trying to get a second look at this thing. And that's when we saw what looked like a large disc-shaped object that was about 100 yards in size. It reminded me a lot of a turtle shell. As a child, I referenced things as things I can remember. And it wasn't shiny. It did not look like what you would expect to see. It had a large center to it. It just hovered about 3 stories high. I've mentioned over the years that it kind of put out a light, but it was the sheen or the shell of it itself that kind of emitted this amber or reddish tint to it. And so we really just sat there looking at it. We were kind of in awe. And at that point, then it just felt like we were deep into a swimming pool, like this pressure change. And it was a tapping sound, reminding me of stones hitting underneath the fender wall of a vehicle. But we were already parked. The lights were on, the car was running, but we weren't moving. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden the car lit up, and then everything...
I just want to pause it for a second, because there are some different YouTube documentaries on this, different people telling a story. And one thing I have noticed with a few of them have mentioned the pressure chamber, the pressure of it all. They felt the pressure. So that's pretty interesting, because the reason I'm bringing up the pressure, like why are you bringing up the pressure? Because if none of these people have talked to each other and they're all mentioning the pressure, there's got to be something there, right? There's got to be something there. What is this pressure that they're feeling? How come more than one person who claims to be abducted during that time talk about the pressure? So that's an interesting, to me, that's a plus. That would be a plus, So I just want to bring up that pressure one. So that is a pretty cool, that is a key element to the story, that multiple people have mentioned the word pressure.
Kind of like silent, this vacuum of silence is the way I worded it. And then all of a sudden, bang, everything came back to life again, crickets, the sounds of nature. And then that's the last thing I remember from being in the vehicle.
So what were the health effects that you experienced?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just... he kind of looks like Uncle Foster, no offense. Just saying, he must have... Oh, my God. Thanks, Raymond.
Uncle Foster.
Now you're putting that in my head. And when I'm looking at him... now, thanks a lot. He just looks like... I'm not making fun of him.
I'm making fun of him. He looks like Uncle Fester.
Uncle Fester. Oh, man. Thank you, Raymond, for that.
That was a good
one.
laugh.
My brother had marks on his chest behind his right ear. I had a mark on my right arm. My brother and I went pretty much bald by like 22 years old. Not sure what happened there, but we're the only ones in our family to have lost our hair like that.
Told you, radiation got that hair.
Very bad eyesight. I've had 5 operations on my eyes. And a friend of mine, too, that was involved in this case, too, has the same eye problem that I do.
That is really bizarre. And the state of Massachusetts has classified this as legit?
Yeah, made the cover of the Boston Globe. Our family got inducted into history. There's a park in our honor in Sheffield, Massachusetts, and it's kind of a unique thing to be part of. But, seeing what we did was extraordinary. I mean, I felt privileged to be part of that. And like I've told other people, this little off-world incident that we were involved with wasn't all that trying. It was really the on-world, how people treated us, after talking about something that they couldn't get their heads around,
Yeah, well, it is a fascinating story, and we hope you feel better from your...
All right. Now, that's cool that, if I could get, live interviews, stuff like that, of course, it's better to have a real person on a channel, but a lot of people in the UFO community don't want to come on my channel. That's fine. I mean, I don't care. So, again, like I said, you don't base the truth on cities recognizing it, governors. That's cool. That's cool. A lot of places recognize folklore, real or fake, for money. But when you listen to him, do you feel he's telling you the truth? That's how you judge it. And again, what's interesting about the story is just take him away. Over 40 people have seen it. More than a couple people has made claims that they've been during this incident. And one thing that I always like what Danny Statton said, that when you're trying to make a difference between two stories, that some stories, there's more people that witnesses versus another story. Now, that doesn't guarantee a story is real or not, but if there's a lot more people, then the first thing I will look at is, do these people know each other, or they're all spread out? And apparently a bunch of different people call in the radio stations and all that. So there's I'm just going off the story, Anthony, they said in there about phone calls to a radio station, not the overall town. 40 people called a radio station. When I'm saying 40 people, what I'm meaning is, in the beginning of the show, I was talking about 40 people called the radio station. So again, remember, we're going to hear both stories. And like I said, you got to listen to both stories, and then you got to make your judgment. Like I said, and don't ever base your story because maybe somebody else likes them or not. You got to choose the story that you feel that is more real to you, based on yourself, not from somebody else. I want you guys to know that you've gotta honestly pick a story because you believe one story is more than the other. So to be fair, so that's good. But so far, I'm gonna look at the voting, but hopefully a lot of you people haven't voted yet until you watch the second story. And right now, my God, it's tied. Literally, it's tied. 50%. Wow. All right. Let's hear the second story of the Vowell Johnson incident. All right. And this happened in Minnesota. So let me find that Minnesota
I'm not even
video.
sure I know what
Check
this
it out.
is. I knew what the other one was because I heard S4 talk about it, but I don't know about this one too much. It might be interesting. We'll stick around.
Decades of secrecy, the federal government now admits there's stuff flying in the sky that they cannot explain.
My feeling is that there is clearly something there.
Sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena clustered around U.S. training grounds that maneuver abruptly at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion.
It is real. That's no longer a point of conjecture at this point.
This admission gives new light to Minnesota's mothership of UFO stories. August 27, 1979, Warren, Minnesota, 20 miles from the North Dakota border. Sheriff's Deputy Val Johnson was on routine patrol after midnight when he saw an unusually bright light.
Hold on a second. Freaky Geek, why call a radio station and not the police station? That's a damn good question. You know, a lot of people actually, believe it or not, do call radio stations because they want to know if anybody else has seen the sighting. Freaky Geek, because you call the police are just going to take your story, take your thing, write it down. A lot of times people call the radio station, want to know if other people have been seeing the light. So, you know that. Hey, listen, Freaky Geek, listen. Working for the cable company as long as I have, when the power goes out, you'll be surprised how many people who lose their power call the cable company. You know, I mean, I'm serious. I listen to these calls. Oh, my TV's out. Ma'am, is the power out of your house? Yeah. Well, you don't got TV because the power's out. True story. True story. TV's out. The power's out. And they call the cable company. Like, somehow we're going to restore the power. So, and often when something like this happens, call centers get jammed up at the police. That is true. That is absolutely true. That's another kind of a evident kind of a thing too. Like you see something, right? You call the police and they're jammed with calls. That means more than one person's calling. But you'd be surprised that a lot of people, especially back in the day when you actually had DJs, a lot of people trust their own DJ over the police.
On Highway 220, hovering over the center of the road, he thought maybe a crashed semi or a downed plane, but as he approached it, he says the light, without a sound, instantly jumped through the windshield, hitting him like a, quote, 200-pound pillow, knocking him out. His watch and car clock had stopped working. He says his teeth were fractured at the gum line, his eyes burned. A doctor said it appeared as if Johnson suffered welder's burn in his eyes. His story...
And here's another good point, real quick. I'll go back to the story. So just a heads up, people called into the radio station because the radio station wanted to know who won this UFO too. That's true too. Some radio stations will actually get a phone call and then they ask the public, have you seen the same thing? So sometimes, remember guys, back in the day, the radio station is your internet. It's your internet back in the day to reach to other people. So.
And injuries mystified the nation.
It's fun to look through them all. A light in the night. The X-Files of the Red River Valley.
But there's another piece of evidence that to this day brings the curious to the Marshall County Historical Society Museum.
I am so fucked up.
The big thing that they come to see from all over the United States. People have come to see this car.
Val Johnson's squad car, damage and all, remains.
Whatever hit him started with a broken headlight, and up here there is a weird dent right on the top of the hood, broke the windshield, hit the reflector, and bent both of the antenna. When they found him, his watch and the car had stopped for 14 minutes. Who knows?
Just for the record, that would not be enough for me. You know, evidence is a weird word, right? Follow the evidence. We'll look at this. We'll look at this. We'll look at this. Look at this. Listen, anybody can make up a fake evidence.
Hey, I remember this case now. I heard about it before.
Things are being faked all the time. That's just the nature of it. You know, some people say, well, I saw the evidence. Well, that's great. You saw the evidence. I didn't see the evidence. What's your evidence? Well, I got these classified. Oh, is those real papers? Oh, it's written by man. So because it's written by man, that means that classified is real? Doesn't mean shit. A lot of people make claims they all have evidence, and you know, this is the evidence. Great. I'm not saying this car is not hit by a UFO. It could be, but seeing it dead, seeing it break, that's not enough for me. That is not enough for me. You know, Listen, the only real 100% real evidence is you being there. Let's be honest, guys. Let's be honest. The only real evidence is if you were there. That's it. That's it. If you were there. I'm waiting for the day when we get true physical evidence. Even if something happened to someone at the end of the day, it's still just words. That's my point. Everything is still just words. You know, even when people say, "Look, I got these files." Those files still have to be written by somebody. You know, some people say the Bible is written by men and they're all exaggeration stories. I'm not saying there are, but you know, at the end of the day, only 100% real evidence is you being there yourself. You yourself. Almost every single story is all really comes down to the word faith. What do you have bigger faith in? That's it. I've seen giant things over my house, and I know what I saw, but it's just a story to everyone else. Exactly. You know, my Bigfoot encounter is just a story to everybody else. Not to the 11 of us that was there, but to everybody else. No, that's why I don't get upset if people believe something or not. You know? It's interesting. I love listening and hearing every single story, but it doesn't mean... I just don't want people to jump on bandwagons just to jump on a bandwagon. You gotta really, truly have faith in the thing you're looking at, you're watching, any kind of evidence. You really got to have faith in what... there's any stories. You gotta have faith.
The sheriff's office back in '79 brought out experts from Honeywell and the Ford Motor Company to examine the damage. The crash investigator from Ford said the cracks in the glass, collectively, were unlike anything he'd seen before. No one, in 42 years, has been able to take...
Or it's the first time he's seen a crack like that. You know, I'm not no expert at looking at windshields on cracks, but I'm sure if I got 100 windshields, they're all going to be cracked a little differently. And I'm sure out of 100, 20, 30 of those, I've never seen it crack this way. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't matter what it is. You know, it's just funny. I've never seen it this way. Well, maybe that's the first time you've seen that line of cracking. I don't know. I don't know. So what? I mean, UFO or not? What, does a UFO have a certain kind of metal that's going to make a window crack a certain way? I don't know.
All those facts and create a reasonable explanation as to what happened, including Val, who in 1980 said, quote, "Upon reflection, we've come to the conclusion that perhaps the Creator has made other things we can't readily see or readily identify, and perhaps this is one of the things we encountered on the road."
Well, they caught the dudes.
All right, I got one more video on the Val, and then we'll talk about it. Then we'll talk about what am I going to pick and what you guys are picking. So one more video, and then we'll talk about it.
It was 1:40 a.m. Deputy Sheriff Val Johnson was on patrol in rural Marshall County when suddenly he saw a bright light a few feet above ground level 2 miles down the road.
I traveled about a mile, and the light seemed to intercept me, so to speak. Came right upon me. It was painful. The light was extremely brilliant and painful. I closed my eyes, and I heard the sound of breaking glass, and that's the last I remember.
Whatever it was came extremely fast.
I'm not saying he didn't see something with the bright light. What if it's an experimental aircraft that has a bright light? You know, if it's dark, I mean, we all think we see everything with HD eyes out there. You know, we see everything clarity. But even sometimes you're outside, you're looking at certain things. When you look at a certain item, it looks differently than what it really is. It's, you know, I'm not saying your eyes are playing tricks on you or not, but it's just the way it is. So I'm not saying he didn't see something. He might have seen something, but it just might not be what you think. It might not be the UFO from another planet. You know what I mean?
Asked. He didn't have time to be scared. He doesn't know what it was.
I have no idea. It's truly unexplainable to me, or unknown to me.
He looked like he ought to be
Johnson was
chasing a
unconscious
bandit.
for 40 minutes before he radioed for help and was taken to the hospital. A doctor and later an eye specialist confirmed that Johnson had suffered mild welder or flash burns to his eyes. Even stranger, both Johnson's wristwatch and the electric clock in his patrol car had mysteriously stopped for 14 minutes. An investigator from the Center for UFO Studies in Evanston, Illinois, flew into a...
Of course, again, that's what he claims. He said 14 minutes. I mean, I haven't heard that somebody else verified that. That's the claim that he made about the clock and all that. Just want to say that. I haven't heard somebody verify that really truly happened.
Examined the damaged patrol car. There was no evidence of radioactivity, and neither the investigator nor the sheriff can figure how the two spring-mounted antennas became bent at almost 90-degree angles. At the scene of the accident, skid marks show Deputy Johnson coasted for 800 feet after impact before applying the brakes.
Introducing cold specialty subs from
And it's brought to you by Subway, because my friend Eric has a fucking
50%
sponsor.
off any cold specialty sub. Only at Firehouse Subs. Tap the banner now to start your order. Select U.S. market terms apply.
Firehouse? Oops.
The area around here has been searched, but nothing's been found. All kinds of small airplane theories have been bandied around, but Deputy Johnson clearly remembers hearing no engine noise. And nothing explains the 14-minute lapse in the two
Come and
timepieces,
knock on our door.
simply a bending of the antennas. It's a mystery. Or, as the UFO investigator from Illinois said, it appears to have been a close encounter of the second kind. Jillian Rice, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
All right.
So where...
All right, hold on. So let's look at this. Break it down now. Let's break it down.
That chick gave me a Three's Company flashback.
That story is mostly his saying. Now, there is damage to the vehicle. That's real. We know that, right? That is actually real because it's, you know, in the museum. So something did damage it. Now, what if... I'm just saying this. What if he did something stupid? You know, whatever it is, that he caused that damage to make it look like he didn't do the damage. He said that he saw this light, you know, trying to blame on something else. Could have. I'm not there, you know. And to verify the 14 minutes, again, that's his story. Now, it's kind of hard, right? Because one has over 240 people who've seen it, over that even call or make the claim. We know a lot of people see things that they don't do the report. So they're just a number, you know, over 240 people apparently seen the Berkshire, 40 people called the station. So you do have more people witness the Berkshire versus one man in the vehicle who experienced his incident. Now, it's hard because, like, more people here, but only one person. You know, I am, you know, I am going to choose the Berkshire story because of the amount of people that have called in and supposedly not know each other versus just one sighting of a cop. Now, I know some people say, well, Eric, he's a cop. Why would he do that? You know, maybe he's in a small town. He didn't think he's going to get out. A lot of people will know about it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Tell us in a sonic voice, where are you?
Choose the Berkshire because of the amount of people that have seen it versus his. But it doesn't mean something could happen to them both. You know, since we weren't there, we don't know. Or they could be a simple explanation for both, but we weren't there. But based on the stories that I'm hearing, listening to, we listened to the interview of Thomas Reed, we listened to the interview of Val. So, we heard both. But you can only pick one. You can't remember this. You can't pick both. You can only pick one. So I am going to choose the Berkshire just because the amount of people that's seen it. The amount of people. So let's look here.
I ain't seen no hash since the fucking 80s.
I just got a text from her. Okay. It's the Berkshire. Okay. Well, actually, let's look at the voting now. Now, everybody, you heard both stories on both sides. You saw videos of both. What is the bigger story for you? And it could be for whatever reason it is. Why you choose a story that means more to you is truly up to you. So, let me look at the voting now. So, right now, the Berkshire is winning 54% to 46%. Which is where I kind of thought it was going to be because, honest to be told, these stories could be way more real than the Roswell, but the Roswell has the bigger name, so Roswell will always win. The Berkshire and the Val Johnson incident is probably stories that's on like the same kind of level, right? Believing it or not. So, all right, hey, we got to have fun on this show, right, people? We got to have fun. So right now, as the voting goes, 54% for Berkshire versus Val Johnson. Now, you guys saw a video with Thomas Reed that looks like Foster from, what was it, Addams Family? I can't remember now. So you got Thomas Reed. That's it. Okay, we're in New York. We got a boxing ring. Here we go. We got the boxing ring. You got Tom Reed go box Val Johnson in a boxing ring. Who will win that fight? Who's going to win that fight in a boxing ring? Thomas Reed or Val Johnson? Now, if you think Thomas Reed will win that fight, put 1. If you think Val Johnson will win that fight, put 2. We always got to have fun. We always got to do.
If you think Danny Staten to win that fight, put a fucking 3. Hey, that's been Eric over at Paranormal Highway. You'll find Eric's link in the chat. Hey, I guess it's about time to wind the old show down. There's only one good way to wind the old show down. And that would be with a video. But I don't know what video that would be. How about some music? Yeah. We're not doing Bigfoot songs tonight. I'm going to have to get off of that. I'm going to find us a good song by my resident house band. That's right. A Salon Alpha acoustic. Because I love these guys. And I'm going to let them play us a song real quick so we can relax and get the UFO stuff out of our head for tonight. We'll do a classic. We'll do a favorite here on the Daily Dan Blog. Be sure to comment a lot because it really helps. The algorithm. This is La Metha Acoustic, one of my favorite bands here on YouTube. It's true. Hey, you know, I got this real good so-called friend named Michael Harper. And, well, my friend didn't show up for my live stream today. Wow, that kind of hurts, Michael. So, let me close the show with a special dedication to my friend, Michael Harper. And here you go, Michael. This is for you, buddy. That's for you, Moxley.
He's got my wristwatch, and he's laughing at me. I told the Mounties throughout the counties to put some bounties all over BC and stop that Sasquatch from playing hopscotch till he gives my wristwatch right back to me. Then Corporal Savern, he found a tavern in an empty cavern where the and he found a Sasquatch.
This is actually Michael.
Wearing a wristwatch.
That's him. That's really him.
So he asked the Sasquatch where he got the
I bet he's going to appreciate this. Somebody be sure to Facebook him this stream.
Said he got the wristwatch while playing hopscotch up in a tree crotch with a stupid old guy. So the Mountie told him he could never hold him. He'd have to scold him for doing no harm. So they played some hopscotch until the Sasquatch had the Mountie's wristwatch on his other arm.
Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell.
They're placing bounties all over the land. And that big old Sasquatch, he won't feel top notch when they get their Sasquatch like they get their man. As if that Sasquatch